Watch this review here. We look at Adam Warlock from the Target exclusive Hasbro Marvel Legends Red Hulk Wave. For people not familiar with the character, don't feel bad. I'm not all that familiar with him either. All I really know him from is the Infinity Gems saga during the 90s, where he played a pivotal role, and his counterpart and all that was basically Thanos. Thanos? How do you pronounce that? I don't know. Thanos, of course, is yet to have a Marvel Legends release, but he is available through the Marvel Selects line, and looks pretty decent. But as such, I haven't had a chance to pick him up yet. While we're still on the subject of the Infinity Gems, there was one video game produced chronicling the events. It was an arcade game called Marvel Superheroes. It's one of the first Marvel fighting titles. I think it was second only to Children of the Atom. Ironically, however, Adam Warlock just didn't even make an appearance in that. Or maybe he had a cameo, but he wasn't a fighting role, despite the fact the arcade version had Anita as a secret character who is a Darkstalker. That was only in Japan, though. But I mean, what's up with that? As for the Warlock here, I bought him loose some time ago, but when I got him, I was taking a look at him and just was so not thrilled with him, I promptly tossed him up on a shelf, forgot about him. When I was just rearranging things recently, I found him, thought he looked pretty cool, ended up moving him someplace else. Then when I was going through some other stuff, saw him again, thought he looked pretty mediocre, tossed him back to the other place, and then sometime later I realized what the problem was. Basically, he looks really good from top down, but when you start looking from the lower portion, it just doesn't live up to it. He, of course, does come with an accessory, his removable staff or stave here. The actual Infinity Gauntlet on his arm isn't removable, of course. Which, I mean, really isn't a big thing, but I just wish that there was some sort of an alternative, like you could switch out with a peg, but that's really more of a Marvel Selects thing. As I was saying, you'll notice that he's got a really decent looking head sculpt here, and the cape just looks completely awesome. Gauntlet also has a lot of detail. Staff, of course, is just like this really flimsy looking stupid piece of crap. But the entire lower torso is just generic Hasbro Marvel Legend. It was just a completely recycled sculpt where they tossed on a cheap paint job. And that's really where the figure loses points. Now the paint isn't as glossy as it is on some other Marvel Legends. I'm really not sure what it is, whether it's just like the type of paint they used doesn't really stick out as much, or they didn't just apply a final coating or something, but I mean the head definitely looks less glossy than the rest of the costume, and the body, which is a good touch. As you can see, it's a really decent looking head sculpt. Okay character resemblance. Hair looks half decent. Only problem is the head doesn't really move a lot. I mean, it'll rotate side to side, but even that feels kind of strained. And then, of course, it doesn't go up too much. I mean, it goes up a little bit, but yeah. Cape looks really decent. I like this little icon thingy here. Under strong lighting, it is a little bit translucent. You won't really be able to see it. Trust me. And the whole body, as mentioned, just looks really cheap with that paint job. A little bit of blurring around the marks of delineation. Adam Warlock stands 6 1/4 inches tall. Here he is standing next to the almost perfectly 6-inch first appearance Spider-Man from the Sentinel series. In terms of articulation, he's really not that great. By the way, he stands just fine in any really flat surface. He's just being posed like this for dramatic effect, and I hope he does look pretty cool. Despite the gauntlet arm looking a little bit different, just for having the gauntlet on it, obviously, the articulation is the same as the other arm, where you just have a point here at the wrist that rotates and then will move forward and back a good degree. Similar joint here at the elbow, instead of having a pin joint. I really like these joints because they're easier to manipulate, but I mean, there are limitations. He doesn't have a bicep joint, which I really dislike, meaning there's difficulty just getting the arms to pose correctly. Standard joint up here at the actual shoulder. Head, as mentioned, can rotate, but cape gets in the way. Cape is removable, but you don't want to try messing with it. You can actually pull this piece up, and then there should be a peg right underneath it, just like on the white and black bean capes. He has a point here up the upper torso. Goes full 360, does not go forward and back much. No point at the waist. As mentioned, the head actually does move up and down. I probably should just reiterate that. I absolutely hate the legs here, because you're kind of being forced out to the side as you kick. In addition to that, you really can't manipulate it a whole lot beyond that. Also, it looks crazy, because it looks like this is the outside, should be on the inside, but it's not. And despite the fact you've got like a joint thing here, it's just so much... Ah, there it goes. That was not worth the effort. But yeah, it's a pain to just do anything with legs here, especially when you're trying to like pose him standing on something, and when you've got like a magic character, you always want to stand him in just some sort of a leaning forward pose for when he's using some sort of a magical effect or an energy projection effect. Knee is basically the same as the elbow. Not too fond of it, but I mean it's definitely better than the hip up here. Hip just drives me nuts. So annoying to try to do anything with. We have a full rotation down here at the calf. In addition to having writing right here, an L2. I mean, I hate when they just have these letters just randomly in visible parts of the figure, especially when you have his whole back section here where you wouldn't see at all. But no, let's put lettering on the front of the figure. The rest of the details are, of course, underneath the boots, so I'm not sure why you just randomly stick freaking letters there. But, as you can see, the ankle/foot has about the same range of motion as the wrist. We'll go 360, goes forward and back a whole bunch. In general, the only thing that's really throwing him is the hip/leg right here, and the fact that he does not have a bicep joint. But I think most of them, this wave, didn't have a bicep joint, just offhand from the spiral and so forth. All in all, Adam Warlock really isn't a very strong buy. But if you are a fan of the character, there's a pretty good chance this is the only 6-inch scale figure we'll ever see for him, so it probably would be advisable to pick him up. And as far as, you know, kind of lackluster figures go, I mean, he's definitely on the higher end of that whole scale, because this is a decent looking head sculpt. Cape does look decent. Great detail on the gauntlet here. It's just that they reuse this kind of generic looking body thing, so pick your poison, I guess. Until next time, folks.